Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mr. Saucedo's YouTube videos. Today, we're going to be talking about a pretty upsetting topic. We're going to be talking about cancer. Um, First of all, though, we have to talk about what is cancer. Cancer is a common name for a disease where we have uncontrolled cell division. So we just spent the entire, unit talking about cell growth and talking about checkpoints and talking about how cells divide using mitosis. So here's kind of how cancer fits into this entire topic. If a cell has damaged DNA, it is programmed to die, right? At the end of G2. That's that critical checkpoint we talked about. Apoptosis is the fancy term for programmed cell death caused by lysosomes eating the inside of the cell. So again, here's a picture. Um, like literally, this is an apoptotic, that's a good word, by the way, cell, where literally it no longer has a cell membrane. All the parts have been kind of eaten away into blobs, and your white blood cells will recycle those cell parts. So literally, it is eating little bits of the dissolved stuff so that it can still maintain some nutrition. So your body is really good at recycling things, clearly, right? Now, here's the thing about apoptosis. Sometimes cells make mistakes. That critical checkpoint is not perfect. And we really don't know why it happens. We're not sure why in some people that little checkpoint is really, really good. And then in other people, why it isn't as efficient or good. There could be a genetic part to it, right? I mean, there are genes that we know increase the risk of you getting cancer of a particular organ, but that's not a 100% sure thing. Just because you have an increased chance of, getting prostate cancer or breast cancer or something doesn't mean it's going to happen. And we don't know why in some people it does and in other people it doesn't. We're not really sure. So cancerous cells keep dividing even though the critical checkpoint should say, hey, stop. And this type of irregular cell division can cause disorganized clumps that we call tumors. So normal cell growth is normally fairly flat. Cancerous cell growth is normally irregular, which means that it can be three-dimensional. It can be vertical. It can be horizontal. It can be at an angle. And so you can start to get these irregular cell growths that clearly look different than the tissue around them. And because the, the fact that the restriction checkpoint is not doing its job, these cells could be totally different types of cells than the organ that they're growing on. So you might think, okay, like, if you have lung cancer, you're probably just growing crazy amounts of lung tissue, even though you're not supposed to. That isn't always the case. The DNA can be messed up to the point that you're actually manufacturing skeletal tissue or you're manufacturing muscular tissue on something that's not supposed to be there. Not to gross anybody out, but they have cut tumors from people, right, that needed to have pretty crazy surgeries in order to remove tumors. And they have found teeth in the tumors. They found hair, nails. Just they have found other parts that should not have been in that portion of the body, but because of uncontrolled cell growth and because the DNA is damaged in some way, the cells that are being manufactured are irregular and aren't supposed to be there. So there are two types of tumors. We have benign tumors, which are clustered together and can't spread. And we have malignant tumors. Those are cancer cells that have broken away. And so when you break away from a site, that's called metastatization or metastasizing, and they can spread throughout the body. So one of the big problems that we come across is that if you end up getting cancer of an organ that is extremely vascular, meaning that it has a really good blood supply, like the lungs, the odds of your type of cancer metastasizing and becoming, malignant goes up because literally, we have a regular cell growth. What if one of these little cells breaks off, goes into the bloodstream, and then just lands somewhere else? Because then that cell will just grow in a different location. So, cancerous cells do have damaged DNA. So, every time they divide, they are creating little clones of themselves that have damaged DNA. And the damage to that DNA can actually increase by division because they normally reproduce and are doing mitosis faster than regular cells do. So, we already had like a list of like the fastest dividing cells, like skin cells, right? But what if, you have even a faster dividing cell on an organ that isn't replacing its cells very frequently? Um, Now you're just going to end up with like giant clumps of something. And so, again, the more damaged the DNA is, the crazier things that can happen because now you could be, like I said, growing entirely different types of tissue in different parts of your body. So, damage, the DNA itself being damaged that causes these types of checkpoint errors, um, it can be a lot of things. It can be radiation, that's a common one. Genetics plays a role. Viruses can do that, like HPV, not HIV, HPV, that's human papillomavirus. One of the most, if not the most, I can't remember, common quote unquote sexually transmitted disease. I said quote unquote. I don't know why I said that, but it's extremely common and it increases your odds of getting all different sorts of types of cancer. Chemicals, UV light, which is a form of radiation. So I don't know why I put it in there twice. Carcinogens are substances that are known to cause cancer. And so most cancer, this is a pretty old pie chart, but you can see 35% of cancer causing cases are related to diet, 30% related to tobacco, 10% sunlight, 10% other, 7% viruses, 4% caused by your job. If you're working in like a coal mine, even if you're not working in a coal mine, if you work in a chemistry lab, alcohol 3%, radiation is only about 1%. And so the only ones that I really want you to focus on and remember are these ones. Tobacco, big one. UV light, because skin cancer is one of the most common ones that comes to mind when we think of cancer. Arsenic poisoning, or arsenic can cause DNA damage. And mercury. All right.